Hello everyone, it's Natasha here from Blue Peak Designs and welcome to another week of hand lettering. I have been really busy this week doing a lot of teaching and checking in with my students, and so I am excited to kind of relax and do something a little bit different tonight than what I've been doing throughout the week. When we first started doing online schooling, it's still fun, but it was really fun and the kids were really engaged. But now as the extension of having to do school at home has gotten longer and the schoolwork has kind of ramped up a bit, I feel that the kids are kind of losing their fire. So we're doing our best as teachers to keep them engaged and try new things, but definitely I'm excited to do something different tonight and do some hand lettering. So just to go over some quick rules again, remember when we hand letter, we are going to focus on those downstrokes. So when you are writing, it's when your pen goes down. That is what's going to create those thicker marks on your letters. The next thing you want to focus on is connecting your letters. So when you are writing in cursive, making sure that you are following through with your letter enough so you can connect the next letter. And then always have fun. So when you are hand lettering, it's just really important to not compare yourself. I say this every week, but everyone's hand lettering is different. And I know when you are doing your hand lettering and you look at it, it's really easy to compare yourself to someone else, but I think it's so important not to. Just take a progression of your work. I suggest lettering every single day. Try something new and just see how well your lettering has gotten. I would even suggest dating your practice sheets and going back and looking at them. Myself, who has been hand lettering for a long time, I still do this, and I find that I have made changes, and there are things that I like about my lettering now than I did a few years ago. So definitely have fun and grab something to drink and grab your writing tools for tonight. So tonight we are going to be lettering one of the things that was submitted by someone on Instagram. So if you didn't know, every week I put out what we should hand letter this week, and people submit ideas. So we had a lot of great ideas. We had a few different scriptures. We had some Disney ideas, which people know we love Disney. But tonight we're just going to do a simple one. We're going to do "It is well." And of course, you probably know, it is well with my soul. But if you didn't want to add that onto your hand lettering, you could always do "It is well in my house." It is well during quarantine. It is well when my kids go to bed. It is well when mama gets a bath. Whatever you want to write, you can do that. But tonight we're going to be focusing on "It is well." So I would go ahead and get your writing tool. I found some new markers tonight. Of course, they're still Crayola broadline markers, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. So if you are new and you haven't been lettering and you have just computer paper like this with no lines, it might be beneficial to draw in a line. It's not perfectly straight, that's fine. It's just a guide to help you. So you can have your line in like this, and if you wanted to put in that midline, go ahead and do that. But it is not necessary. You do not have to have a line at all. So the first letter I'm going to teach you how to write is an I. And so this is a great letter to practice the downstroke right away versus going back and trying to write in your downstroke. So you can put the little tick on it like I do, and then press hard, and then do the little tail on the way up so that you can connect your next letter. So if you saw what I did, I'm going to use a different color so you can see what I'm actually doing. So I like to put a little tail on the beginning part, and this is a thin stroke because I'm going up. And then I'm going to push a little bit harder to create that thick downstroke. And then as I go up for my tick to connect the letter, I have a thin stroke. So I go like heavier pressure on the way down, and then up. You can always not have the tail on it. So if you wanted just to do something like that, you could do that as well. And if you notice, my letters are kind of getting taller because I felt like that was a really small spot to use for this fat marker that I have. So I'd practice a few of these. And then if you visited us on previous videos, you know that I typically don't go back and dot my I's or cross my T's until after I've done all of my hand lettering, just so the placement's right. But since this is all that we're doing today, I'll just go in and put that dot in. All right, our next letter, again, if you want to make that line, you can, is going to be a T. And the T, just like the I, is a great one to practice using those thicker downstrokes. So I'm going to start at the top, apply heavy pressure, and go up. I always go below the baseline for my T just to add some variation when I connect my letters, but you are welcome to just stay on the line. I forgot to mention up here on the I, if you aren't understanding how to do that thicker downstroke, you can always use the tip of your pen to create that thin I and then go back, box in, and then color in. You are always welcome to do that as well. Same thing with the T. If you want to create a thin T like that, you could box it in and then go back in and fill in your line. If you are really wanting to try to get this thick downstroke, I would suggest holding your pen or marker at an angle. It doesn't really matter what your grip is. I know some people write like this. Some people use like a tripod grasp like this. I would just suggest, instead of holding more at the tip, that you angle your pen a little bit so it allows the marker to have this thick part touch the paper. So it can get thick like that, and then make the tick mark up. Also, make sure that when you're writing that you're moving your whole hand and not just your wrist. If you just move your wrist, it's going to stop you from being able to make a fluid motion, and that can get tricky when you are doing hand lettering. So I come all the way down and back up. And then when you go through and you put the crossbar on your T's, you can vary these based on the space that you have when you're lettering. So again, I just like the I's, I typically don't cross my T's until I'm done with all of my lettering and I go back and see what space I have to fill. But when I do that, there are some different ways that you could do the crossbar for the T. So you could do a fancy tail like that. You can just do a diagonal quick cross like that. You could do a capital. Some people like to get real fancy, do something like that. But I do typically just do like that. And a lot of times you might have to go back through and make that thicker depending on what the rest of your work looks like. All right, so our next letter to practice would be an I, but we've already practiced those. So now we're going to move on to the S. So I'm going to switch markers just because that one seems to be dying out a little bit. But first I'll draw my line so you can see, and then I'll go back to this pink. So there are a few different ways you can make your S. I'm going to show you two ways, and then I will show you the way that I typically do it, and that's the way I'm going to show you when we do our practice writing it as well together, when we connect the letters. So you can always make your S. You would do a diagonal up. It's a thin stroke since you're going up, and then around and continuing this stroke so it kind of curves around and it goes up. Now, if this was the first letter in something, you could leave it like this, but we would have to connect this. So you're going to want to bring this tail around and up. So this is going to allow you to connect it to the next letter like a T or an I. And if you did like this S, this would be your downstroke right there. And then this part is also a downstroke. You can also make a traditional S like you would in regular print, but then follow through with this tail so that you can connect it to your next letter. So again, this is just like you would regularly be making an S in print, and then I just follow the tail through. The downstroke would be this inner part and around here, and then as you're making that slash through, that is an upstroke, so you are going to keep it thin. But the S that I'm going to use and show you a few of looks like this. So it's the same as this one. I do a diagonal up, and then I'm going to curve around the same way that I do for this first S. But instead of coming all the way through, I kind of stop in the middle. So I like to do it like that. I mostly choose this S over this one because I feel that sometimes this S can get, this little tail part here can get in the way of your other letters, and it just requires a lot more planning. And this is the S I just have gotten comfortable using. So this is what the S looks like. If you wanted to go back and put in your downstrokes, you would draw it in like that and then fill in that section. Or if you are trying to apply that pressure while you are going through the one time, you would go up with the light pressure and then press down and then lift up the pressure as you go through like that. So light, press down, back up. You are welcome to use any writing tool that you have. The reason why I like broadline tip markers is because they have a flexible tip, so it allows you to be able to push down and create that thicker downstroke. If you're using something like a Sharpie, that's not going to have that flexible tip, and it's going to make it difficult to do this. And so you would have to go back and you would draw in that downstroke, and then you would color it in. Same thing with like a pen or a pencil or just anything that doesn't have a flexible tip. If you are using a brush pen, that is going to be easy to kind of create this look because you would just, again, apply that light pressure and then press down to provide more pressure on the downstroke. Someone said that this looks like a pretzel, and I agree. It does kind of look like a pretzel, and that would be a tasty treat right now. And then maybe that's why I don't use an S like that, because it probably did at once remind me of a pretzel too. So this is how I would make my S for hand lettering. But again, this is your style, so choose the one that you like, or if there's a different style that you like, you can do that too. All right, the next letter we're going to practice is a W, and this is a letter that we have not practiced if you visited us every week. So I will show you how I do that. I start out kind of like I would the I. I make a little tail, I come around and back up like that. That's the first part of the W. And then when I create the second loop of the W, I go below the line. I like the variation that it shows, and it kind of has that bouncy effect with the letters. So I picked up my pen and I'm going to go down below that baseline. I'm going to come back up. I'm going to you can leave it like this if you'd like, but I'm going to show you a fancy thing that I like to do with my W's. So I made that I picked my pen up. I'm going to go down under that baseline, come back up. And once I get above where this other starting point is, so I came around like this, I actually loop around like that. So again, I make an I go down below the baseline, back up and through. If you're wanting to put in those downstrokes, you can go back. It would be here, here, and here. And if you are doing the downstroke on this upper loop here, you're going to want to remember to kind of taper it off because your connecting letter does start to go up, and you're going to go into that next letter, so you don't want a really fat section meeting a really small section in the letter because that might look a little uneven. So if you wanted to apply that pressure when you are hand lettering in one motion, you would have light pressure, press harder, lift it up, more pressure, up, more pressure, and lift up, like that. And then our next letter is going to be an E. And this one is just like a traditional E. Nothing really special about it. It's just a little bit more rounded than like a traditional, like straight E like that. This is more rounded like that. And I like to have the tail on the end because when you're starting to connect the letters, this is a great spot to connect the previous letter to it. So again, you would press hard there, go around like that. If you are right now only able to create a thin letter like this, you would go back and put in an outline there and then fill in where your downstroke would be. All right, the next letter, we have two of them, are L's, and the L is kind of similar to the E, and you can start at the bottom and go up and around like that. You can start in the midline, make a loop, and then come straight down and back up. You could even get really fancy and your letter, your L, in this case, like would not connect to the previous letter, but you could do something like that. I would actually make it more so it kind of goes like that. So not so much that one. But in the word well, we are going to connect two L's together. And so when you are connecting two of the same letters, you want to show some sort of variation. And so one easy way to do that is to make the height levels different. So instead of making two L's that kind of look like this, that's kind of boring. And so I typically would have one L go like this, and then I would bring the next one up and then even extend it down. And so we'll get to practice that when we write it as well. You do have to be kind of careful if you are doing this to make sure that your previous L doesn't look too much like an E, because as you can see, there will be a lot of loop letters in the word well. And so it's going to be really important that when you are varying your sizes that you're being aware of that. So those are all the letters that we need to practice today. And then now I'm going to go in and we're going to work on connecting them. I'm going to turn my paper sideways just so I don't run out of room. When you start writing phrases and you're not just practicing letters, if you are still needing to put a line on your paper, I would suggest writing it in pencil. That way when you are using it to practice and line up your lettering, it's there for you. But then when you're all done with your lettering, you can go back and erase it because you don't want to have a pen mark in the middle of your hand lettering that you practiced. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try this marker. And we're going to write the word it. So remember, with that I, since it's the first letter, I'm going to like to have some sort of little entry to my letter. So I like to put in this little mark like that. And then that is my I. What you're going to notice, a big difference between hand lettering and traditional cursive is, number one, you really don't have to know how to write in cursive to hand letter. When you write in cursive, everything is really connected and it flows. When you hand letter, it's a lot of start and stop. You're always lifting your pen up and you're going in and you're writing the next letter. So if you don't know how to write in cursive or your cursive isn't very good, that is okay. You can be good at hand lettering. And also finding the right tool that works for you is going to make you a better hand letterer or not, and practicing. But here is my I. My next letter is going to be the T for it. And I am going to extend my T down below the I here. I'm going to start up here and go down and come up. So as you can see, I did try to apply that downstroke, that pressure down to make it thicker, but it still did not help my letters connect. So I can do one of two things. I can go through and I can draw a line down here to make this thicker, or I can draw this up a little bit to connect it. And since this is already as thick as this line here, I'm going to opt to do this one and just fill it in. Thank you to the person who commented that it is beautiful. And I am not going to go back and dot or cross my T yet. I want to see what the rest of my writing looks like. So the next word is going to be is, and you can kind of follow this I. If you want to keep your writing kind of on a straight line, you can kind of guide your next placement based on this I. If you want it to kind of be bouncy and all over the place, don't worry too much about that. But I kind of look here and I'm going to make my I come up, and then I'm going to go right into my S. And so the S, as when we practice, we did start at the baseline and go up, but now this is kind of midway. So it's kind of weird to start a letter midway. So I do typically kind of go back down here, and then I go up, around, and through to make the S. Again, if you were doing a different S, I will show you how to connect those. So if you wanted to make yours and have the S that looked like the traditional S, you are going to have this mark coming up. You're going to lift your pen up, and you're going to have to kind of gauge where you think you're going to come around so that this part touches part of your S. So I'm going to start here, I'm going to come around here and go through. So it didn't really touch, but I don't have that thick downstroke in, so you can do it like that, and it would connect. So if you like that kind of S, that's how you would do that one. All right, so now I'm going to come back up here, and I'm going to work on the W for well. And if you remember, I liked to make my W so that the first section hit that baseline and the second part went below the baseline. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my letters that I already have here, and I'm kind of going to recreate this. So my first part of my W is going to look just like the two I's here. And then I'm going to try to hit that second part of my W at the same level as the T. So I'm going to start over here. I'm going to make what looks like an I, but a little bit opened up a little bit more. Then I'm going to go down, up, and around. And I brought my loop down enough so that when I go to connect my next letter, which is an E, that E is going to be able to somewhat be in line with the rest of these letters. So you want to keep that in mind. So if you are a new hand letterer, that's why it would be helpful to go ahead and have lined paper. I'm sure you can go on Google and just Google like hand lettering practice paper, and you could print off some sheets and it might have those lines in there, or you can draw them yourself with a ruler. It just really helps guide when you are writing. So for this, I'm going to go around and have that thick downstroke and thin upstroke. And now for my L, I did say that I like to vary the way that the letters, like the height difference. And so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to start my letter about right here. You can have it connect, but I'm just going to start it here. I'm going to go like this. So this letter, it went the same height as the W here and the T over here. And then I ended it where the E, the S, and the I are. And for my next letter, I'm kind of close to the top of the paper here, but I'm gonna make it a little bit taller, and I'm definitely gonna go down just a little bit. It doesn't go as far down as the W or the T, but it is lower than the other letters. And I'm gonna go back through, my marker kind of died out a little bit, so I'm gonna go back through and I'm gonna make these a little bit thicker and color them in so it doesn't look so dried out. And now, since I have written what I want to write, and I hate that I can't see it all in one shot on the, I'm going to go back through and I am going to dot my, actually no, I'm going to cross my T. So I have a lot of space right here, so that means I'm going to do some sort of like fancy tail like that. And then I'm just going to dot here. And so this is why it's important that I didn't dot my eyes ahead of time, because sometimes when you're dotting your eyes, if you did it too high, this crossbar on the T might have hit the dot on the I. So now that I have it as well, you can go ahead and you can choose a different color or the same color. I like to have a different marker just so this one is thinner, so it's easier to write. So you could, like I said earlier, you could fill in what you want to. So it is well, and I'm gonna write with my soul. And so I didn't space that out very well, but you could do something like this. You could even go back if you wanted to and put some different lettering effects on your lettering here. I'm just putting dots at the points of each letter. If you were to write it with a thicker marker like this, you could, if you were to write the word with, you can also do thick downstrokes with just print too. So it still adds that same effect, but it's a different style of lettering, like this. So I just want to thank you for watching this video. I know a lot of you catch this on YouTube after the live, so thank you for doing that. And always check out our Instagram to be able to submit some new ideas. I love writing names, so if you'd like to see your name hand lettered or a different scripture or just a phrase that you've been using, let me know. You can follow us at Blue Peak Designs. Thank you so much.